Welcome back, dear ones. Now, if we really want to get in touch with life, usually it happens when some crisis or something happens to us that shakes us up and that brings us out of the rut of the everyday life. And as many of you know, I am constantly studying and looking into near-death experiences and people who speak about their experiences when they are in contact with a broader state of consciousness. And with that, I can share with you something that I came across yesterday that I think will help a lot of you to maybe refocus and become clear again on what really matters in their life without having to go through a near-death experience. So I listened to an interview where a man named Bybee spoke about his near-death experience, and I want to share with you the 3 questions that he was asked on the other side by the divine when he actually had the interaction with the divine. And now this was, he basically had crossed over and after several experiences encountered then this, let's say, voice of God or divine voice and presence. And he was asked questions that afterwards, when he came back, stuck with him and that kind of guided him through life as well. He has written books about this too. So the first question that the divine asked him was, what have you done with the life just lived? What have you done with your life? And that's a very broad question and a very deep question. So this is something you can ask yourself as well. If today was your last day, and if this was the last hour, and the next hour there wouldn't be any more hours, you'd not be here anymore, and you would be asked that question. So you would have to look back at your life and reflect on it. What have you done with this life that you've just lived? Now, the second question that he was asked was, whom have you loved and who has loved you? And if this is a question God would ask, the divine would ask us, eternal consciousness would ask us, obviously this is important. Now, most of us know that the most important message anyway is love, right? And this is the most profound reason for everything. And this is what underlies every experience anyway. So ask yourself, reflecting now, who did you love in this life so far, if today was your last day? And who loved you? Now, there might be people who have loved you throughout your life that you may not be aware of, but you can think of the ones that you are aware of. And the third question you can take with you for today, the divine asked Bybee, was, what have you learned? And in order to get this one right, when he came back, he read a lot of books and he studied things, and finally he realized it wasn't about learning anything in particular, like science or anything that was written. It was like learning in his heart. What from the heart, from that which is you, what have you learned? What have you as a soul learned throughout this journey? And this last one as well is very important for all of you who have the question, what is my mission here? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? As in, what have I intended to do or experience here before I came? What do I want to do with my life? I'm unclear. I want to find my path. This last question can lead you to it. The question, what have I learned so far? As in growth-wise, right? Internally. What have you learned about life, about you, about what matters, about how to live what matters? And if there are still gaps, or if you still feel there is a lot before me, look at that intuitively and follow that one, because it will lead you along your path. And that is very individual for everybody, very, very specific for everybody. But my sense is that this last question points to that. What have you learned? What was your soul's purpose to come here? What were the lessons your soul wanted to learn in this lifetime? And what did you open yourself up to learn, to experience? Always coming back to realizing who you really are, because this is what it is about. This is why we're even talking, because we're searching, we're on the road to rediscovering ourselves. We want to remember who we are, because when we remember who we really are, we also remember why we came here. One reason is to remember who we are, but that entails a lot of other aspects which are very specific to each soul. And so why you're here is different to why your neighbor is here, or your partner, or your child. And by asking yourself the question, what have I learned so far? It will lead you into what is still there, or what have I actually closed myself off to learning? What did I not want to look at? Where were experiences that could have shown me certain things, but I didn't want to see them, I didn't want to learn them, I did not learn the lesson, or I did not take the consequence from this and continued with the learning from that experience. Because we can have all sorts of experiences and not take the learning from them with us, like not wisening up. Which means life will bring us more of that if they were things that we wanted to learn actually here and to experience. So we're going to encounter the same type of issues, type of experiences, type of situations, because there is still learning to be done. And once we have it, it's like, okay, got this. Now I know why I have 11 times the similar situation in my life during the last 20 years. Now I'm getting it. Now I'm processing it. Now I'm integrating it. Lesson learned. Thank you, life. Thank you, universe. Thank you, soul. I can move on. There's no need for me to have this experience anymore. Let's say if it was an uncomfortable experience. Okay? So this is what I wanted to share with you for today, because I love those questions. When I heard them yesterday, I thought, yes, they can get us to think about ourselves and our lives and put ourselves into the focus again, because we are responsible for ourselves. There is no, well, he made me do this and this distracted me into that. It's like, yeah, but you allowed yourself to get distracted. We cannot escape the responsibility that we have for ourselves in every little way, in every thought, in every feeling, in every action. And also, maybe as a last thing, I found that very profound as well. Nothing new, right? This is stuff that possibly a lot of you already know, that I certainly know already, but I want to share this again with you to bring it to your conscious mind, is that when he had his life review, he was asked, with every situation that he was presented with and that he lived through again, as you're aware, you get to see certain life situations again, and not just see, but you re-experience them again. And the way near-death experiences describe it is you experience it from your own point of view, but also from everybody else's point of view, and not just point of view like mind, rationally, But emotionally, you are every single person in the scenario. So let's say if you hurt somebody, now deliberately or not, consciously or not, but you will feel it and experience it from the other person's point of view, from the other person's perspective. You are the other person as well as yourself in the life review. So even though you might understand yourself and your actions in your life review from your own point of view, you go, okay, I understand why I did that, why this person did that. You also experience what it did to the other person, because that will also be you, and you will be feeling every single thing. And then he says, and this is what I think all of them say, there is no judgment on the other side. Now this is not what religion teaches. But there is no judgment on the other side. The divine does not judge, because everything is divine, because everything comes from the divine source. There is no source of undivine. Everything originally comes from divine source. So, and if source is love, love cannot judge. This is the opposite of love. Judgment straight away. Whenever we judge, we know we're not ourselves, our true selves, because we're judging. We are not loving. So, the divine does not judge us. Nothing on the other side judges us, but there is judgment from ourselves, because we realize in that situation what was right and what not. And in the thing that, well, is there right or wrong, because that is duality, the way that this is being described by near-death experiencers is not so much was it right or wrong, but, and this is what he was asked again during his life review, this is what I come to now, was which with everything the question came, was this a loving thing to do? Was this a loving thing to do? And now obviously him and other people as well would say, you're in the presence of pure love. And you see what you did here in your humanness. And there is no way you can say, yes, absolutely. It was okay for me to hit this person. It was okay for me to talk bad about that person. That was loving. You realize, because you're so enveloped in this purity, in this unconditional love, that you obviously, you know what is not in accordance with it. Because you're also part of it. You notice that this is who I really am, and whatever else I did there, I notice now when it was not in alignment with the universe, the divine me, the divine. And so a lot of you already write that you ask, what would love do? And this is just as great if you are guided through your day by this question. How would love respond? How would love think? What would love do? Or you ask yourself, is this a loving thing to do? Now it goes into your thoughts. When you think grumbly thoughts about somebody or some situation even, something judgmental, mean, ask yourself internally, now is this a loving thing to do? And of course you can justify it. No, it isn't. But if they weren't so stupid, I wouldn't have to think that. And everything would be fine and I could feel loving and everything. But as you know, nobody's ever responsible for the way you think and for the way you feel and for the way you act. Okay, so this as a reminder to help you refocus your own attention on your life. Because the day will come when there will be no tomorrow for all of us. When it will be the last breath, the last minute, when we will transition. And we will be looking back at this life. So let's use it in the way we actually want to look back at, in the presence of the divine, and say, this is endearing what I see. This is endearing what I'm being shown about how this little human, this big soul, me, lived in this little human life, and all these wonderful things. They don't have to be perfect, but all these wonderful things that I can look back on. And again, if we slip up, if we do things that are not loving, the next second we can come back to love. Even by realizing it, it vanishes. It's a clean slate again. By realizing it, by feeling the, oh my God, like this kind of guilt and uncomfortableness with your own, what you've just thought or said or done. And then forgive yourself, because that's what Source does. Forgive yourself, acknowledge what you did, acknowledge it wasn't loving, forgive yourself, because if you hold judgment against yourself, it's just the same thing. It's not loving, right? It's like, oh, because then it's the ego thing. One part of the ego wants to be better than the other part of the ego and, judges the lesser part. So self-forgiveness is then the first step into coming into alignment with divinity again, with your own divinity again. And then it's done, and you move on in your loving way throughout the day. Okay? I'm going to love you and leave you for today, and we'll talk again next time if you want to.